What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. We're gonna talk about how I finessed Best Buy into building up my photography business and increasing my personal finances. But first, let's get to the studio because it's windy out here, it's cold, and it's starting to rain. Okay, we're back at the studio. It's been like 3 years since I've worn this shirt and it still fits. Today is like a story time, pretty much. I want to tell you guys how I was able to take a part-time job and use it to upgrade my business, as well as make some leaps and bounds with my personal finances. But before I get started, while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. Please help a brother out. Now that we got that out the way, let's go back in time to about mid-2018. Leading up to that, I was spending a lot of time reading self-help books, listening to financial podcasts, watching YouTube videos, and I got reacquainted with Dave Ramsey. If you haven't heard of Dave Ramsey, check him out. About a decade prior to 2018, my sister went through Dave Ramsey's program and was able to totally revamp her personal finances. So I knew the information that he provided worked. So I just happened to kind of do it myself. Not fully what he teaches, but I took aspects that fit me. One of which is get rid of all of your debt. At that time, I had about a year and a half worth of financing left to pay off on my car, and I was wanting to get new cameras, new lighting equipment, a lot of stuff. I was needing probably about 5 or 6 grand to put towards my business, not to mention I wanted to pay off the car and a couple of credit cards that I had. So it was like, all right, I can keep working, my media company, take however long to make that money up on the side, or through the information I learned from Dave Ramsey, I could go pay down my debt by finding a side hustle or finding a part-time job, pretty much any type of way to make money. And I decided to go get a part-time job. Now, if you've been an entrepreneur, working for yourself full-time, you can kind of get a chip on your shoulder. I don't want to say you feel like you're too good to work a job, but you kind of feel like you're too good to work a job. If you're self-employed, you probably can relate to what I'm talking about. It came down to, do I want to have a chip on my shoulder, or do I want to enhance my business and enhance my financial future? Now, once I decided on getting a job, I knew that it couldn't be full-time just because I didn't want it to affect my clients that I already had and just my freedom, honestly. And I knew that I didn't want to just get any type of job. I still wanted it to be kind of tied to what I do a little bit, if possible. And I'm looking online and I see Best Buy was hiring. It was part-time and it was in digital imaging. Digital imaging is, your cameras, lenses, GoPros, drones, that department. Now, naturally, that lined up with what I was interested in, with me being a content creator and running a production company. So I applied for the job. They called me a couple of days later, called me in for an interview. I got hired. That was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. I don't know what it's like working for Best Buy now, but during that time, I absolutely enjoyed it. My coworkers were cool. Managers were cool for the most part. There's a couple of managers that sucked. And, at first, it took a little while getting used to having somebody, tell me what to do after being self-employed for, 4 or 5 years at that point. But everybody was pretty cool. Like I said, when I first initially had the idea to get a job, it was to pay off bills, pay off debt, invest in more gear for the business. I had no clue just how lucrative working at Best Buy would actually become. I met so many clients in there. I'm talking about a ton of clients. I was booking so much work just by being there and meeting people. Me personally, I used to buy a lot of my gear from, Amazon, B&H, Adorama. But a lot of people, a lot of photographers, content creators, business owners, they would come into Best Buy looking for gear. And as a salesman, I'm trying to figure out, what type of gear to point them towards based on what their needs are. And a lot of times, I would find out that this is a photographer upgrading his camera, and then he's like, yo, I need a second shooter for weddings, for events. I was booking jobs like that. One of my clients that is still a client to today, that I actually run his YouTube channel, make tons of content for him. I met him there. We are still working together today. He came in the store with his wife. He was browsing for a camera, and I could just tell by looking at him, he had no clue what he was looking for. So I went over, started making small talk. He told me that he had a YouTube channel and he was kind of doing content here and there, but that's not his thing. You know, he's a real estate investor. That's where all his focus is. But he wanted to get his YouTube channel, you know, back up and running. So he was going to pick up a camera. So I just kind of jokingly said to him, you know, you can save your money on the camera and just hire me to make your content. I'm pretty sure Best Buy didn't like that, but hey man, I got to get this bag. I just threw it out there to see what his response would be. He was like, you do video? I was like, yeah, I do. We exchanged numbers, and I think he called me like a day or two later. And another day or two after that, we were locked and loaded and making content. There's another time where I met a politician that needed someone on his campaign. This was for the 2020 election, and he needed someone basically that could attend, you know, all of his speaking engagements, take photos and video, someone to shoot his campaign ads. That was an amazing opportunity. I met so many important people in my area of Greensboro. And going back to what I said earlier about how a lot of my coworkers were cool. I was on break when the politician came into the store, and he was kind of asking around, like asking people if they did videography. None of them really did, not seriously anyway. So one of my coworkers calls my phone. I'm like, what is he calling me for? I'm on break. I'm thinking he's about to ask me a question about a camera or something to tell a customer, because that used to happen a lot. He's like, yo, come back out here to the floor. Somebody wants to talk to you. He's interested in hiring somebody. You know, he's running for office in a couple months and yada, yada, yada. So I'm like, holy smokes. So I go out there, I chat with him, we exchange information, and that was another gig. I was this close to working on a documentary that was gonna be on Amazon. A director came in while he was in town. We started chatting it up. I would have been going out to Africa to work on a project, but the pandemic kind of messed that one up. But just wanted to kind of show you guys the hidden gems, the hidden benefits that I got for swallowing my pride and going to get a part-time job. Not knowing any of that would happen, not even considering any of that. It was just, hey, I wanted to make some extra money so I could make some things happen. But going back to that, it worked out just like I planned. Within 6 months, I was able to pay off my car. So that put me on track, you know, paying it off like a year early. Now with the money I was saving from no longer having a car payment and no longer having credit card bills, plus the extra money that I had coming in from having a part-time job and booking more clients than I previously was, I was able to quickly save up, you know, like 4 or 5 months of my living expenses. I put that in a savings account. Once I had that secured, then I started investing in stock and crypto. And the last step was building up and enhancing my media company. At that time, I was still shooting DSLR. I had the Canon 5D Mark III and the 6D Mark II. Everybody on YouTube was pushing Sony cameras, mirrorless, you know, 4K. I really wanted access to 4K. A lot of my friends had already made the jump to Sony. We all came from Canon, and I was ready to make that upgrade. So another great benefit of having that job was, one, you know, I had the extra money to spend on gear. One of the other benefits was I had an excellent employee discount. There's like a 2 discount system with Best Buy, or at least there was at that time. You got your regular standard employee discount. Some companies would give you something called like an accommodation. So we had like this platform where it's kind of like an education platform to learn about products, services, those type of things. So let's say GoPro, for example. They'd have like a module that you would have to complete. Once you complete that, you would get a certificate and you might get 30% off, 40% off, 50% off. I just started racking up on gear. I would buy stuff I didn't even need. I bought like multiple backpacks, GoPros. I had the 8, the 9, the 10, 2 360 cameras, extra batteries for my camera, ND filters, just so much stuff. My whole podcast setup that I have right now, my microphones, my board, all of that. I would just walk down some of the aisles and I would see items that I didn't even know existed, and I would just buy it. And not just like photography or video gear, but I mean, I bought video games, a blender, I got a juicer, security cameras, random stuff just because it was so discounted. I probably spent more money than I needed to spend, but it wasn't really a big deal. I was able to get the cameras I needed. I ended up getting the A7 III. Let me tell you a crazy story about how I was able to get the Sony A7R4. Within Best Buy, you can get jobs where you're paid by different brands. So we have a Canon rep, a Sony rep, a Nikon rep. They get completely different discount structures. compared to like anybody else in the store. So the guy that was the Sony rep at the time, once a year he would get an accommodation for like 60 or 70% off of cameras or lenses. So they'd have a list of which items were eligible. Now, he wasn't a photographer, so he comes to me and he's like, hey man, I got this accommodation. It's gonna expire in like 2 days. I immediately whip up my phone, put in the price for the A7R4, saw that $3,500 camera with his discount would cost about $800. I PayPal'd him the money like immediately. He went up front, paid for it, and I took home a Sony A7R4. That was wild to me. I felt like I got one over on the man. I didn't have any plans to buy that camera. I mean, it was on the spot. I had a wedding that following weekend, and I'm like, okay, I can get a Sony AR4 for $800. Like, come on, bro. So that is my story on how I finessed Best Buy to upgrade my business and help build my financial future just by working there part-time. So I just wanted to put this out there as like a little motivational piece. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are self-employed and there's little things you want to do, even if it's, you want to take a nice trip, but you might not have the funds to do it. Don't be too proud to take other employment if needed. You got to do what you got to do to make it in this world. And being an entrepreneur is all about figuring things out. If I had to go back, I would do it all over again. I met so many valuable people, made valuable connections. There's people I literally still talk to and work with today that I probably would have never met had I not taken that part-time job. And it was super chill, like I said. They worked with me in every way. Working there did not hinder me from my main business. Now, I know that's not the case with every job out there. I understand that I was blessed. There were days where I was scheduled to work and someone might have called me the night before for a project, and I would tell my manager and he'd be like, yo, just leave, go do your event, and if you can, come back to work. Or just tell me to take the day off. If you made it this far, then you must have found some type of value. So please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.